Hi, I want to share another beautiful vintage guitar with you. This time it's another near mint example of a pre-CBS Stratocaster. This one from 1964. Very much like the previous video of the 58, this one has just really hardly been played. Definitely signs that it has been played. You know, near mint is a fair description. Certainly not mint. Mint always meaning as new, never played, only just touched a handful of times. But as you can see, it's just beautifully clean. Nothing ever changed. First off, being new to this whole world of YouTube, I wanted to thank everyone for all the positive comments and the support and letting me know that you enjoy what I'm sharing here. I appreciate that. I just want it to be fun and informative for everyone. And, you know, those that are posting negative comments, which is kind of part of the deal, you're just going to get blocked from the channel. There's just no place for that. I get a lot of, not a lot, but there were 2 or 3 on the last one, you know, telling me, should I take it apart or not take it apart? Saying that the guitar should be flogged or abused, or it's not precious. You know, saying that this and that is not original, this part, that part that I might be pointing out. And it's just worth saying that I've been doing this over 30 years on a really intense level. So I'm not really interested in the opinions of, you know, those with obviously no experience telling me that something that's objectively truth is not. You know, I know the difference between original parts and non-original parts. I'm all for an educated or an experienced opinion, by all means. You know, nobody has seen everything, so I'm not saying don't share your opinion. I'm just saying those that obviously have little or no experience have no place speaking in black and whites about this kind of stuff. So you're just going to get blocked from the channel. It just confuses the industry with those kinds of things, you know, being so positively and confidently expressed, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, all that said, back to this beautiful Strat. This one still has a very old set of flat wound strings with the green silk up here, a wound third, real heavy. These are like, you know, 12s. And it's very typical of what would have come on the guitar. This may or may not be the original set of strings. Probably not. Probably just, you know, a subsequent set from way back, because this has really only been touched and played a few times. A couple little minor things. This is an obvious one. That's a case bite, real typical of the case lid falling down and that middle latch tooth. Get a little contact there. But just very minimal fret wear. Just signs that someone actually did play it. Just not very often. No nicks on, you know, along the headstock edge. Just little nicks here and there. Here's some typical, you know, little bumps and flea bites that I call them from the cable missing the jack. There's one good chip right there. But even the back, look, no significant belt buckle wear, just a few marks. Really great, beautiful example. Great neck profile. Just a little bit of lacquer wear in certain areas on the back of the neck. So this is a 64 that shows some really fun transition elements. So still has a green guard. By late 64, most of these are gone, although some go into 65. So it has the pearloid dot markers, unlike the previous, what we call clay dots, which weren't really clay, but that's just kind of a collector's term. Small headstock still, and the transition logo. So this is the logo that came right after the spaghetti logo that was on Strats from the beginning in 1954. 64 is when you start to see this one. Some beautiful bird's eye on this too. Really, really beautiful wood, and a beautiful Brazilian rosewood fingerboard. Sunburst is still quite warm, although, you know, starting to look like what came later in 65 and 66, where you see some of them. Some people call them a target burst or a clown burst, and all that means is that they just weren't as careful in spraying them, and the gradation between the colors is a little more abrupt. But this still has some really beautiful finish, color, with the green guard. Really looks great. So my task here is to carefully remove these old strings. We're going to keep them around and keep them in the case, but this guitar is going to somebody that would like to play it, which is great. So I'm going to set it up properly for a set of 10 to 46. Another little thing worth mentioning, the three-way switch is really tight. So much so that in the bridge position, this green nitrate material has shrunk so much that it doesn't even allow the switch to get to the bridge only position. All the way down, it's the switch is making contacts for the middle and the bridge pickup. So I'm going to have to very carefully just kind of file away the end of this slot when I take it apart. And I'll clean the pots, just do the typical stuff. I fully expect to find nothing but originality underneath this pickguard. It's just one of those guitars that speaks for itself. But you never know. It's always worth checking. Some people don't like to. That's totally fine if that's what you want to do. The person that I'm doing this for wants me to get in there and take care of that stuff. So that's what I'm going to do. So stay tuned for that. Just another interesting point I meant to point out first. Just took the low E string off and reminded me that this is in kind of the state that I've seen many of these guitars in, especially the ones that are really, really clean and haven't been played much. They're rarely set up even close to proper. So even from the factory, they commonly came out not set up well, even to the point where, you know, they're almost deemed unplayable by a professional or anyone with much experience. So for one, you know, look at the saddles. They're kind of in just one continuous straight line. They've been adjusted all the way down with the screws sticking up, which, you know, that we all hate that. But another thing that's real common on Strats is having one or more of the pickups too close to the strings, and it just magnetically throws off the intonation. So some guitars come with a shim to take care of that from the factory, and some don't. I'm going to suspect that this one doesn't, but it does need one. So I'm going to install one just so that it plays the best that it can. All right, so here's the big reveal under the pickguard. So as you can see, I've taken all the screws off carefully, and you kind of have to work fairly quickly when you're working with these guitars that have the old green nitrate, because these want to shrink up right away. If I'm going to have these off of the guitar for any length of time, sometimes I'll even screw them onto a board just to prevent it from doing that while I'm maybe refinishing a guitar or something like that. You can also see that I've got all the screws lined up exactly in the order that I took them off. You know, there's no guarantee that I was the first person in here and maybe someone else did not do that. But it's just something that I do out of habit. It's just kind of my due diligence to keep things in line and put them back where they were. So I'm going to grab a little cloth here, just for protection. So carefully lift it, you know, no fight. This one's coming right off. Beautifully clean under there, no extra routes or anything like that. You know, another example of where they didn't shoot the red part of the sunburst under the pickguard where it was unseen. You only see that on some of the very first three-tone sunbursts on real early 58 three-tones. So turn this over for the first time. And yeah, just as I suspected, it's just absolutely pristine. Everything kind of as it was when it was done the very first time. This twist that you see here, Rick King and I were just discussing this, and we just recently saw this on another example from the same time, where the ground wire from the bridge claw doesn't go into the jack cavity like it does on a lot of old Strats, but comes straight here and gets soldered to the volume pot, and it's twisted with the ground that does go to the jack. So just as we want to see it. So I'm going to take this switch away so that I can correct the length so that the throw of the switch gets its full range. Okay, so I removed the switch, or just pulled it back out of the pickguard with the two screws, and very carefully lengthened this back. So the switch now has full access to the bridge only position. I also did a little bit on this side too, just to ensure that it goes to the neck only. So here we have full motion, everything working as it should. These pots are not even scratchy, so I'm not going to clean them out. They're perfectly quiet. So that's it. This is going back together. Another thing to point out, there's the S mark. You see that on a lot of guitars that were intended to be sunburst from this period. And there's a little piece of masking tape there. I don't know if you can see it from the glare. It's just some type of production code. Some notation from one step to the next. So I'm going to get these screws back in here just as they came out, just like on the last video. Clockwise till you hear it click into the thread, and then put it all the way in. So I'll put these back together. I'm going to install the shim right here. There's the neck date of November 64. Makes sense. All the pots date 64 as well, worth noting. So I'm going to get it all buttoned back up and set up properly with a set of 10 to 46 for the first time probably ever in its life. All right, another step I like to do is to lubricate the truss rod nut. So I've just backed it completely out and just put a little bit of this Super Lube synthetic grease. It's kind of like a Vaseline consistency. Just a little bit in the threads and a little bit on this face of it. I flexed the neck back and forth with the truss rod nut out just to kind of help reseat everything. I find that that gives you a better chance of a nice truss rod adjustment. Also, if you don't have one of these, the Cruise Tools screwdriver that's made for this is just a perfect fit. Super safe. You're not going to damage this old nut. All right, we are back reassembled with the shim in, all strung up. Switches working so nicely. So you can see that the shim was effective because now the strings are slammed against the fingerboard. And now I'll be able to set this up by properly adjusting these saddles and matching them to the radius of the fingerboard using the Music City Bridge saddle driver. Another great tool. I love people who make great tools. There are two of these, and between the two you get the most common fittings for bridge saddles, including a tiny flat head for like old tellies. It's just a really great tool. I mean, it's just an Allen wrench mounted in this handle that just gives you really great control. Can't say enough about them. Oh, and the people there at Music City Bridge. Everyone at Glazer's Repair Shop is just so great. You guys are lucky to have them in Nashville. So I'm going to fine tune this and we'll give it a spin. All right, so here it is, all set up with 10s, 10 to 46. Playing great. We're going to play it through the 1963 Vibreverb. Middle pickup. And the bridge by itself on that. That's bridge and middle. Middle neck. Happens to sound particularly good on the in-between positions, the 2 and 4.